Today's topic is about Korea, South Korea in particular, a country that we've been allied with for so many years, almost 60. And the relationship goes well beyond the economics, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about. It's also a friendship that dates a long time, and it's evident in one stat that we like to talk about, which is the number of international students from South Korea studying in Ohio, and particularly at the Ohio State University. It's the number 3 country after China, 1.3 billion people, after India, another billion, and then South Korea is third with only 50 million people. So on a per capita basis, South Korea sends more students abroad than any other country. Ms. O was telling us that today. And it's those friendship bonds that can then lead to political and economic ties later on. So we're excited to talk more about this important relationship. We will have some remarks from our 2 distinguished guests, and then have a moderated discussion here that you can interact with through the note cards, asking questions. If you prefer Twitter, you can hashtag AskCCWA, and we'll be picking up the Twitter feed to feed those questions into us. We also are broadcasting this live through our network of 95 World Affairs Councils around the country through our live stream. Today's sponsors, the 3 in particular that I'd like to mention first: the Korea Economic Institute of America, the World Affairs Councils of America, and Columbus 2020. Please join me in thanking these lead sponsors. Thank you. But so many more wanted to get involved that we have support from JPMorgan Chase and the Ohio State University's Fisher College of Business Cyber, East Asian Studies Center, the Institute for Japanese Studies, and the Institute for Korean Studies. Thank you as well. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to introduce the distinguished colleague in our community who will then introduce our speakers. She's a friend of the Columbus Council on World Affairs and a friend to the Korean community here in Columbus. She knows everyone and is such a delight to work with. Ms. Nancy Payan is currently the executive director of Thai Ohio, a nonprofit that serves immigrant and international entrepreneurs here in our community. There's a long bio that I'm not going to say, but you'd be smart to get to know Nancy Payan. Please join me in welcoming Nancy Payan.
Thank you, Patrick. On March 15, 2012, the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement was signed and implemented with the goal of increasing exports by billions of dollars annually for the countries, in addition to creating new export-related jobs. In recent years, the partnership between the United States and South Korea has expanded into a comprehensive global partnership, and South Korea's role as a regional global leader has continued to mature, as exemplified in the 2010 G20 summit. I am honored to introduce today's distinguished speakers, Vanna Chan and Yoo-Jin Oh. Ms. Vanna Chan is a South Korea desk officer at the U.S. Department of State's Office of Korean Affairs, where she covers inter-Korean politics and relations, human rights, and consular issues. Ms. Chan joined the U.S. Foreign Service in 2009. She previously served as a consular officer at the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina, as a political economic officer at the U.S. Embassy in Vilnius, Lithuania, and as a political military officer at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan. She has a BA from the University of Minnesota and master's degrees from Columbia University in the Institut d'études politiques sciences Po, and Ms. Chan is from Minnesota. And we'd like to introduce Ms. Yoo-Jin Oh. Ms. Yoo-Jin Oh joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in August 2007 and was appointed as Second Secretary for the Economic Affairs at the Embassy of Republic of Korea on August 17, 2015. Her past work experience includes North Korean Nuclear Policy Division, Protocol, International Security Affairs, and the Asian Corporate Cooperation Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Seoul. She holds a BA in International Relations from Seoul National University and a master's in public administration from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and also finished her PhD coursework in international affairs at Peking University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Vanna Chan and Eugen Oh to Columbus, Ohio, and if Ms. Oh could approach the stage.
First of all, thank you, Patrick and Nancy, for the kind introduction. Actually, today is my first public speech in English, so please allow encouragement. And I also thank Columbus Council on World Affairs and Franklin University for having me today. Personally, it is such an honor to be here in Ohio State because Ohio claims to be the mother of the presidents, as it is the birthplace of 7 US presidents. And also I know that no Republican has ever been elected president without winning Ohio. And no Democratic candidate since 1964 has won White House without carrying Ohio. So this shows how crucial Ohio is to presidential fortunes. As Ohio goes, so goes the nation. I'm here today to talk about trade and economy and the relationship between South Korea and the US. Recently, anti-trade sentiments and negative views on bilateral trade agreements with other countries have dominated the US presidential campaign. People are more afraid of trade and globalization and more frustrated than ever. I know Ohio is also one of the so-called Rust Belt areas, and heard that many people here lost jobs. However, one of the world's largest economies cannot live by cutting ties with its most important trading partners, such as South Korea. Do you all recall Luddite movement in 19th century? At that time, textile workers protested against newly developed labor-saving technologies. But after all, we human beings have overcome every difficulties and made amazing economic development. So when it comes to target of attack by presidential candidates, Korea's FTA is not the exception. Korea's FTA means Korea-US Free Trade Agreement, which took effect in March 2012 and now turned to 4 years old. Here are myths and facts about Korea's FTA. First myth is Korea's is job-killing FTA. When you look into the facts, that is not the case. Many of the manufacturing jobs lost in the US were due to automation and technology advance. In fact, Korea's FTA has created about 45,000 jobs in the US, offering an average annual wage of $80,000. This number is actually 33% higher than the US national average income. It also contributed to local development in non-high-income states. And according to the ITA reports from 2009 to 2015, 87,000 US jobs have been created by US goods and services exports to Korea. And second myth is Korea is a cause of the US trade deficit to Korea. No. Actually, US is more enjoying the Korea's FTA's benefits. Sensitive trade items vital to US economic interests, such as automobiles and pharmaceuticals, agriculture products, enjoy tariff reduction under the Korea's FTA. Korea's top export items, such as IT products, smartphones, and steel products were already duty-free prior to the Korea's FTA. Recent increase in imports of these items has more to do with the high consumption and demand driven by US robust economy. So to get the full picture of the Korea's FTA, you must not focus only on partial picture of trade in goods, but also analyze the trade in services and investment. If you look into the Korea's FTA, you can easily find it has delivered balanced bilateral trade. And on a per capita basis, the US trades more with South Korea than with China and Japan. Currently, Korea is the US' 6th largest trading partner, while the US is the Korea's 2nd largest trading partner. Now we can go into the details. Total volume of the goods trade amounts $115 billion in 2015. The total market share of the US products in Korea increased from 8.5% in 2011 to 10% in 2015. Why we compare with the 2011 actually is before the Korea's FTA is taking effect. While Korea's import decreased because of the economic recession, US imports increased due to high consumption and demand driven by a US robust economy. Key trade items critical to US economic interests enjoy tariff benefits under the Korea's FTA, which led to a significant increase of export in automobiles, blueberries, lemon. So you can see the slides. Automobile increased 260%, and fresh blueberries increased 600%, actually. And the number of US vehicle exports to Korea increased by 260%, and American brands' market share has been rising. So these days, more Koreans love US brand automobiles, and yeah, I hope they increase a lot. So overall, despite US trade deficit to Korea, Korea's FTA mitigates US trade deficits. According to the 2016 US ITC reports, US trade deficit in 2015 may have amounted to $44 billion instead of the current $28 billion without the Korea's FTA in place. So Korea's FTA allows US business to import intermediate goods at a lower cost that helps lower US production costs and enable more US exports at large. And moreover, starting from the 2017, next year, the US will be exporting 3.5 million tons of LNG gas per year to Korea for 20 years, which would amount to $2 billion annually. In terms of trade in services, US services exports to Korea increased by 34% from 2011 to 15. The total surplus in US services exports to Korea increased to $11.3 billion. And also regarding investment, the surplus in Korea's investments to the US increased $5 billion in 2015. As I mentioned before, Korean investment employed 45,000 Americans with average salary of $18,000, and it actually contributed over $25 billion to US exports. If you can see this map, there are a lot of Korean companies running factories. So Hyundai in Alabama, Kia in Georgia, Samsung in Texas, and Hankook Tire in Tennessee. And in Ohio, I heard that Knox US, a joint venture between Korean and American companies, also invested in Fostoria, Ohio, creating jobs. In a nutshell, I can say the Korea's FTA is working. And Korea's FTA also provides a productive forum to resolve any pending issues between our two countries. Significant trade issues such as rules of origin verification and finance data transfer were successfully resolved through numerous consultative bodies established under the provision of the Korea's FTA. So Korea's FTA and Ohio. So Korea and Ohio total trade volume amounts $1.1 billion. And Ohio major exports to Korea would be aerospace products and parts, fabricated metal products, and navigational and measuring instruments, and motor vehicles, and general purpose machinery and chemicals. And there are several success stories here. Actually, our embassy is operating this website, KoreaCoreaConnect.org. And through this vehicle, we are communicating with many American people and companies using also SNS such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you go into the USKoreaConnect.org, you can get access to numerous Korea's FTA data and contact information of Korea's interest companies, 50 state fact sheets, and various newsletters on the economic issues of the US-Korea as well. So using this website, we normally develop the success stories. So for example, in Ohio, Columbus, we found that there is one company called Allied Mineral Products. This is located in Columbus. So under the Korea's FTA, these tariffs of up to 6% on allied products were eliminated. So in conclusion, over the last 60 years, US-Korea bilateral relations have blossomed into a comprehensive and mutually beneficial alliance of regional and international influence. US-Korea alliance and its main components, Korea's FTA, exemplify the success of US-led world liberal order established after the World War II. Now, US and Korea's partnership is expanding the scope of their cooperation to new frontier areas, such as environment, marine, health, and space, based on military alliance and economic partnership. I and my embassy in DC will do our best efforts to see more advanced and developed Korea-US alliance. So now I would like to wrap up my presentation and invite my best friend, Vanna Chan, here.
Thank you, Ms. O, and Ms. Chan from the U.S. State Department, please.
Good afternoon. Sure, I'm so sorry. So, again, Eugene's presentation was amazing. I've served in the Foreign Service for 7 years, and I know that presenting in a foreign language in such a difficult topic is incredibly impressive. So I want to applaud her again. It's amazing. But my name is Vanna Chan. I'm at the State Department, so I work in the Office of Korean Affairs. And it's great to see young faces, also adults, but to see the group of high schoolers, and I know that there are some linguists in the group as well, so I was just talking to some of them who are very impressive, and I hope that we can recruit them to the Foreign Service in the future. So thank you for the Council for the invitation, the Korean Economic Institute. It's a pleasure to be here in Columbus. It's actually my first time in Columbus, but it's been lovely so far. We arrived yesterday afternoon and were able to enjoy the beautiful weather for a little bit. And it's great to have this conversation with you to talk about the US-Korea relationship. And I know that some of you have traveled to Korea, are really interested in developing that relationship. And we're hoping that some of the high schoolers will get to travel and study in Korea or do some more exchanges. And as Patrick mentioned, the people-to-people relationship is key, especially as we try to move forward our relationship that is already really strong, but we continue to build and expand that relationship in new ways. So, as you know, the US-Korea relationship is one of the most important relationships that we have in the world. And as some of you probably have heard, President Obama has pushed for this pivot to Asia, the rebalance to Asia. And so Korea has been, a key partner in that relationship and that pivot for our policies. So it's another sign for why we've been presenting around the country, the U.S. State Department, but also our Korean embassy colleagues. And we've been traveling around to Texas and Oregon and other places. And it's my first one, so thank you for being such a welcoming group. And it's good to see that, I can start with with this very nice group of people. So, but our relationship, so basically the State Department, what we do is we implement U.S. foreign policies abroad mostly, but also because we have our embassy in Seoul that's working directly with the Korean government on a day-to-day basis, we in Washington do the same thing through our embassy, but also with the Korean embassy in Washington. So we have this really strong relationship that helps us grow and continue to expand and look at ways that we can connect better economically, politically, and on security issues. And so I'm sure all of you know that a lot of the focus over the years has been on North Korea. So our alliance is founded mainly because of the security concerns. Our relationship started with the Republic of Korea in 1949, and then in 1953 we signed this mutual defense treaty. And since then, the focus had been historically on security, but it's also expanding with the US-Korea Free Trade Agreement, and I'm glad that Eugene was able to give you a clear overview of all that it has accomplished over the years, over the past 4 years since it entered into force. And so with the Mutual Defense Treaty, we've been focusing on DPRK, and actually an interesting fact is that just 2 days ago, we had our 2+2 meeting in Washington. So our Secretary of State, John Kerry, and also our Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter, were meeting with their Korean counterparts to talk specifically about the security relationship, not only security, but also our larger alliance. So with the recent provocations with the DPRK, our focus has been on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and putting more pressure on the DPRK. But over the past decades, we've also been focusing, in addition to all the security portions of our relationship, but also on economic growth, economic ties, and so new ways of cooperation. And so the economy in Korea has expanded to one of the most vibrant economies in the world, and it is a vibrant democracy and one of our strongest partners. And so with the US-Korea Free Trade Agreement, the Republic of Korea is now our 6th largest goods and trading partners. And so we're looking at ways to move this alliance into other important and strategic ways. And so, Eugene mentioned the New Frontiers cooperation, so looking at space, cyber, health, energy, and the environment. And I know that we have some health experts and environment experts in the audience. And I know that some of you will be traveling to Korea next week, or have just returned from Korea. So it's good to continue this cooperation as closely as possible. And so we're moving in this new direction and always looking for ways to strengthen the people-to-people ties. But I want to give time for a lot of questions and a discussion, so I wanted to keep my remarks relatively brief. But our relationship with Korea is at its strongest right now, and we hope to continue moving in that direction. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chan, and I also invite Ms. O to join her on the stage and get mic'd up. This is your chance to ask questions about Korea, South Korea, North Korea, K-pop, Gangnam Style, female president, etc. These are all important things that are happening in Korea or a part of Korea. I'll go ahead and ask the first question to get us kicked off. And maybe we'll open it up and ask you, Ms. Chan, to begin. From a U.S. policy perspective, or at least, don't worry, we're not going to quote you on U.S. policy. I know you'd be in trouble for that. But so North Korea launched another failed missile attempt. I guess can you launch a failed missile attempt? They failed. But nonetheless, are attempting to cause concern for many. And can you help just give us a view on the U.S.? How does it think about North Korea as it relates to South Korea? Yeah, in terms of like U.S. policy, we have a policy with North Korea, but integral in that is our partnership with South Korea. And the missile testing?
Did it work? Is this working? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is that okay? Okay. So our relationship is really focused on this alliance. So we're committed to defending our allies in the region, so Korea and Japan. And with the recent provocations by the DPRK, they're really concerning, and we continue to work at the UN with the UN Security Council on a resolution on implementing the UNSCR 2270, and also looking at ways to deepen, to truly deter the DPRK for violating the UN Security Council resolutions again, and also their destabilizing actions have been present a significant problem to peace and security, not only in the region but globally. So we're really focused on working with our Korean allies in the region and also Japan to address this problem. We've been working diplomatically as well. So as you've probably heard, if you follow those issues, we've been engaging diplomatically with all governments around the world to break ties or degrade their relationship with the DPRK so that they're not able to continue their nuclear programs. And so we're trying to implement those sanctions implement those sanctions so that they're not able to fund their nuclear programs and are forced to give up their nuclear plans. So I know that's one of our biggest goals right now. Is our ultimate goal continues to be the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Ms. Oh, I'm sure your goal in South Korea is also to denuclearize North Korea. And your past experience prior to being in the economic section was around nuclear nonproliferation. And I wonder if you could help us understand, if you're in South Korea, talk about what the missile launches and the provocation. Can you put it in some context to help us understand, maybe is this more or less than it was before?
Yeah, North Korea's provocation is actually getting serious because in Kim Jong-un's father age, the total number of missile attacks will be 16 times or something, if I remember correctly. But for this year, Kim Jong-un launches missile over 25 times. So I think their provocation is getting serious. And in terms of that, our Korean government will cooperate the U.S. government and the other international community to crack down. So we are right now pushing up our sanctions against North Korea. So we know that it will take some time to get us some effect from sanctions, but we are still working on. So.
Got it. Great. This goes to either of you. Has Dennis Rodman been effective in negotiations with North Korea? I see some questions. Please bring them up.
But even though there is North Korea's provocation, but is kind of business environment in Korea is very friendly, and there is no issues in Korea where a businessman is working. So don't worry about that.
Don't worry about it. Can you tell us more about, if we're a U.S. company, thank you, thinking about investing or exporting with Korea, what kind of things should we be thinking about?
Mm-hmm. Actually, our Korean government's focus is more manufacturing, such as machinery or automobiles. But right now, the current president, Ms. Park, she is pushing for more innovation and regulation-free environment. So, and we've mentioned about the new frontiers, such as health and aerospace and marine or something like that. So maybe U.S. companies can find some good chance to have a business with Korea, I think.
Great, thank you. You brought up your president, who is a female, and we may or may not have a female president for the first time in the U.S., and she was South Korea's first female president, if I'm correct. Has that changed anything in terms of, well, yeah, just respond to that if you would, either from the U.S. side or from the Korean side.
So from the U.S. side, our relationship with President Park has been very positive for our relationship with Korea. It's actually the strongest it's ever been historically, so we're really happy to have to be working with President Park, and I know that President Obama and President Park have a very close relationship. But it's interesting that we talk about women's issues because actually just last month we had a Women's Empowerment Trilateral Forum in Washington that was with Korea and Japan. So one of the things that we've been working on over the past years is strengthening the trilateral cooperation because of course Japan and Korea are our two strongest partners in the Asia-Pacific region, and so working with them directly, trilaterally, and also encouraging them to work more bilaterally has been very beneficial. And so this past month we invited a group of about 50 to 60 women leaders. I'm sorry.
It's much better. No, I'm so sorry.
Sure. Is this better? Can you hear me? Okay. So we invited about 50 to 60 women leaders, not only from the U.S. No.
Just hold it close.
Okay, like this? No? Okay.
There we go, yeah.
So we invited 50 to 60 women leaders from the US, Japan, and South Korea, and they talked about political empowerment, economic empowerment, and also looking at the role of women in civil society. So it was interesting because, the issue of, okay, you have a female president in South Korea. Is the situation perfect for women there? And it's a challenge. It's a challenge everywhere in the world, but it's good to have this dialogue because, in the U.S., we've been working on gender equality and empowering more women to participate politically, economically, and also in civil society. And I think we're doing a pretty good job, but it's not perfect yet. And maybe soon we'll have a female president. We don't know. But it's interesting that we have to continue the dialogue and learning from each other. But it was interesting to hear from the three countries that they tended to have very similar challenges, and it was, they talked about how women were the most educated. So, if you look at the statistics, more women are graduating from college and from university and getting master's degrees, more and more. Like the percentage is over 50% I think in the U.S. and also in South Korea. But when you look at leadership positions, they tend to fall off, or the percentage is not as high. And it was interesting to hear from their perspective that that many of the women ended up doing really well professionally up to their 20s, 30s until they had children, and then that's when you started seeing them falling off and no longer being as active. So, regardless, even if we have a female president in Korea, and there are still challenges that need to be addressed, and so it was refreshing to hear that. They may be in the Asia Pacific, but their challenges are very much the same as ours. So,
would you like to say anything?
Actually, President Park was the first Korean president, but also first president in East Asia countries. So echoing Vanna's remarks, actually Korean society is also changing. So this year, for those who joined the foreign ministry, among them 70% are women. So this change are more optimistic, right? So.
Great, thank you. Now I'm getting questions. I love it. Keep them coming. This one goes right to the top because it says student on the top. So I don't know if that was someone up here who pretended that they were a student, but no. But there's actually 3 others behind it, all around the U.S. presidential election, which I'm sure you're thrilled to comment on. So maybe we can just take the way this one's phrased. How closely is the Korean government, the embassy, and sort of the average South Korean citizen following the U.S. presidential election? Would you have a sense for that?
Yeah, of course. So in Korean media, we have a separate section for the U.S. presidential campaign. So most of South Koreans are follow the right now ongoing U.S. presidential campaign, and also embassy level, we are outreaching to 2 campaigns, presidential campaigns. So we are watching out who are going to be the main person in transition team, and who will be the next cabinets or something like that. So we are look closely with the U.S. campaigns.
Got it.
And yesterday debate was interesting.
So you watched it?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Of course, yes, of course.
That is one of my works. So.
Yeah, it's part of your job, right? Late night job. The related question that is more about the South Korean election process. Can you tell us about what the form of government is and how the president is elected in South Korea?
Yeah, actually similar to US. So actually next year we have presidential election. So before the summer, maybe we have main three parties and extra some parties, but they will choose one candidate among the parties, and then after that they will debate twice or twice or three times in television. It's I think similar process with US.
Got it, great.
But the big difference is we are doing the direct voting. Every person has one vote, so we are going to the voting place to choose the president.
Got it. Do you happen to know how much, like a percent of people that vote in South Korea?
I think 60%.
60?
Everything.
And does anyone know what it is in the U.S.? 30? About 30? So, all right, here's another question, and it's starting to change into some of the cultural exports from Korea, which I remember when my kids were really into that Gangnam Style, that video, that K-pop video by Psy, where I started realizing that Korea is actually exporting a lot of cultural pop music, drama that's being seen all over the world. I know you have a good story that you may decide to share. And this one comes from a student. It says, how has the growth in popularity of K-pop affected the South Korean economy? And would you like to comment on that?
Yeah.
Ms. O?
I cannot calculate specific numbers, but
no.
yeah. But yeah, in DC we have kind of a culture event a lot. So we have a Korean culture center also. So if they host a kind of a culture event, I can see a lot of Americans coming to see the Korean musicians or artists. So they might reflect the U.S. interest to Korean culture. So.
Yeah.
Did you want to share your story about K-pop?
Okay, I can share my story. I was telling them at breakfast that a few years ago, 7 years ago, I was in Peru, and I went to visit my friend's village where she worked as a Peace Corps volunteer, and it was in a very remote area of Peru. It took 15 hours to travel to get there, and they barely had electricity in some parts of the village, and yet we went into this little shop, and there was a woman there, but she was not really acknowledging our presence because she was too busy watching her Korean drama. So it's sort of really interesting that, in the middle of nowhere, in this little village in Peru, this woman was watching Korean drama with Spanish subtitles and was just so absorbed, it's so popular all over the world, so.
Okay, that's a good story. And I was talking with the principal at Columbus North International High School, Mr. Lee, who's here. Wave your hand. One of our lead schools in the Global Scholars Diploma Program was telling me now they have a K-pop club at the school. So it's certainly hot everywhere. Mm-hmm. This also relates to education, and I'm not sure who the best one to answer is, but I'd start with you, perhaps, Ms. O. South Korea is often ranked very highly in education, in the PISA tests and others. So can you talk a little bit about what's the secret, if there is one, and then how does your country view the importance of education?
I think it's kind of Asian culture because most parents, they emphasize the education and they devoted themselves to educate their children. So my parents also did that, but sometimes that is good, but sometimes that is not that good because when I was studying in high school and middle school, I normally studied overnight until 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Really?
Yeah. So sometimes it is very stressful to students. So I admire U.S. educational atmosphere. So.
Got it. 2 a.m. studying when you were in
of course, yeah.
middle school?
Yeah, middle school.
Wow. I have a middle school son that doesn't do that.
Okay.
But now I've got something for him. I've got something for him. That's
And
good.
parents should be harsh.
They should be harsh.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
You also
so you should be harsh and work till 2 a.m. All right. Mowing the lawn, too. This one is about, was there anything you wanted to add to that, Ms. Chan, in terms of education from South Korea?
Yeah. No, we're really glad to see that so many Korean students are choosing the United States to study abroad. So that's, and they're sharing their strong work ethics, studying ethics with American students. So that's great.
Great. This one takes another route, asking about healthcare, and the specific question is, could you help describe the healthcare system in South Korea? Is it a national healthcare system, and what are some of the driving issues for healthcare in South Korea? We recognize this is not your expertise,
Yes.
but anything you can tell us about the healthcare system and what are some of the major issues would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, I have met a lot of pharmaceuticals companies in DC. So normally they raise the issue of pricing or some on pharmaceuticals or medicines, because we have a single medical system. So government provide all the medical services to a person. So if I pay some small amount of money, if I go to the hospital, I can use all of the health services. So, but this is possible because we have a small population. But US, I think there is different story. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. I can add a little bit about global health cooperation with Korea. So I know we've partnered a lot with the Koreans, especially with what happened with the Ebola crisis. I know the Korean government sent some of their scientists and doctors to help with the crisis. And also recently another pitch for the trilateral cooperation, but Vice President Biden did an event at the UN with with the Koreans and the Japanese because of the cancer partnership. So our scientists from our 3 countries are working together to find cures and work on eliminating cancer. So it's great to see that the healthcare system and also the quality doctors they have in Korea, they're sharing their knowledge and working together with the US and Japan to address some of the global health challenges we face. So.
And thank you for those. I see people tweeting about it. No, not a question though, but thank you for that. And if anyone wants to do, I'm back. No, I'm back. Never. Are we back? I've never worn so many microphones in my life. I feel like I'm on one of those treadmills and they're checking all my heart rates. This question, I think, most appropriately relates to Ms. Chan. This question is, does your office encourage or discourage travel for U.S. residents to North Korea for business and education objectives?
For North Korea?
So yes, can we go? Do you encourage or discourage it? And help us understand.
It's your choice, but we have travel warnings. So I would really encourage you to look at the travel warnings. It's on our State Department website. There are some concerns, obviously. So, we can't force you to do one thing or another. So it's your choice, but please be informed and be safe.
So it's our choice, but we can. Can we book a flight?
If you can get a visa. I think it would be no, we don't encourage, we would not encourage it, but I know that there are, of course, some U.S. citizens who do travel to Korea, nevertheless, but it's not something that we would encourage at all.
I think we read about one who, should I do the podium?
Yes, please.
Okay. The follow-up to that question that I was going to ask, and you mentioned it about, because we heard here in Ohio about, there was a student who, I think he's from Ohio, but he was from a university in some other state, who was traveling to China and went to North Korea and stole something, and the North Koreans arrested him, and it was a whole big issue, at least here in Ohio. And the thinking in my head was, well, what were you thinking? So it sounds similar to the official policy of the U.S. Department of State. What think before you travel to a dictatorship. So this one is a follow-up, and it may be best for you, Ms. O, is which are South Korean citizens allowed to enter North Korea for business or other reasons?
No.
Not at all?
No, that is not at all.
Okay. Wow.
And also, sorry, we also have sanctions against North Korea. So if you want to do business, you cannot do business with North Korea. I'm sure all of you know already, but with the sanctions in place, it's illegal.
All right. More questions, but I've got one here. I heard this morning that Samsung represents something like 20-some% of the South Korean economy or GDP. That seems crazy for one company, and I don't think we have anything similar to that in the US. But this relates to the Samsung, and it talks about Samsung is so integrated in the Korean economy. Given Samsung's recent trouble, will quality concern in manufacturing impact other Korean industry sectors? What do you think, Ms. O? Will the recent Samsung challenges ripple into other Korean manufacturing processes or the perception of?
Actually, Korean economy is highly dependent on the Samsung companies, but Samsung has a lot of branch of, operating items, so such as cell phone. So except cell phone, they are manufacturing automobiles or television or every home appliance. So just for the Galaxy Note 7 issues, I don't think Samsung will have much difficulty, or our current economy will have difficulties. So.
Great. This question is related to the presidential campaign, but specifically about military defense activities and relationships. The question is, a presidential candidate has suggested that our military allies should pay more for defense. Does Korea take unfair advantage of U.S. military support? Why don't we start here with you, Ms. Chan?
So in 1953, as I mentioned, we signed the Mutual Defense Treaty. So we're committed to defending South Korea, our ally in the region. And no, I think it's part of our mutual agreement, and the South Korean government is actually contributing a lot to their GDP, based on their GDP per capita, their GDP on security, on defending themselves. So, but of course we have our own security concerns, and the United States is committed to defending our nations as well as our allies. So I think, we will continue to follow and respect our alliance agreements and our treaty partners. So I don't see that as South Korea taking advantage of it. It's a mutual defense treaty that we have in place.
Would you like to add anything? Same? I like that. I think that's a good way to wrap up in terms of the conversation on security issues, because in about a month or so, we're going to have our next program on the Middle East and try to make sense of the situation there with two speakers on the topic of the disintegration of the Middle East. So we encourage you on November 29th to join us. I know there's more questions coming, and I have more here. If you'd like to talk with the speakers a little bit individually after, we'd be happy to let you do that before they head to the Ohio State University later this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me again in thanking Ms. Chan and Ms. O for their insights into Korea. And thank you to each of you. We really appreciate your support and being here. You have a lot of things you could be doing with this time, and you're investing in yourself, your community, and your world, and we really appreciate it. We are adjourned. Thank you.